Commander Thecamol Varix stood on the bridge of his battle cruiser and watched the stars. He had been fighting wars for 200 years. He had conquered 47 different species across the galaxy. Some fought with energy weapons. Some used biological warfare. Others tried to hide in gas clouds or asteroid fields. It did not matter. They all fell before the might of the Velthari Empire. The communication screen flickered to life. Admiral Kexthara appeared, her blue skin marked with the ritual scars of high command. "Commander Varix," she said, "we have a new assignment for you." Varix turned from the viewport. "What species this time, Admiral?" "They call themselves humans," Kexthara replied. She transmitted a data file to his console. "A young race. They have been expanding into contested space." Varix opened the file and began reading. His mandibles clicked in amusement. "Chemical propulsion? Kinetic weapons? Admiral, surely this is a mistake. These primitives barely have space travel." "The Council wants them dealt with quickly," Kexthara said. "Consider this a training exercise for your new sub-commander." Varix glanced at Sub-Commander Yulhara Nexus, who stood at attention nearby. She was young for a Velthari officer, only 50 years old. This would be good experience for her. "How many ships do they have?" he asked. "Intelligence reports 12 colony vessels in the Kepler sector," the Admiral replied. "No military escorts, no defensive stations. A simple cleanup operation." Varix closed the file. 12 civilian ships against his entire battle group. It would be over in minutes. "We will depart immediately, Admiral." The screen went dark. Varix turned to his crew. "Navigation. Set course for the Kepler sector. All ships, prepare for combat. Operations." The journey took 3 days. Varix used the time to study the human data files. What he read made him laugh. The humans had only developed faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. Their ships were slow and clumsy. Their weapons were primitive projectile systems that fired metal slugs. They had no energy shields, no plasma cannons, no quantum disruptors. "Sub-Commander Nexus," he called. "What do you think of our new opponents?" Nexus looked up from her console. "They seem basic, Commander, almost primitive." "Exactly," Varix said. "This will teach you how to handle weak species. Most races surrender when they see our ships. The smart ones anyway." His tactical officer spoke up. "Commander, we are approaching the human convoy." Varix moved to the main display. 12 large ships moved slowly through space. They were ugly things, all angles and jutting sections. Nothing like the smooth, deadly curves of Velthari warships. "Open a channel to all vessels," he ordered. The main screen showed the bridge of the lead human ship. A man in a simple uniform sat in the captain's chair. His hair was black, and his eyes were dark. A nameplate on his chest read, "Captain Daeho Kim." "Human vessel," Varix said in the standard galactic language. "I am Commander Varix of the Velthari Empire. You are trespassing in our space. Surrender your ships immediately." Captain Daeho looked directly at him through the screen. There was no fear in his eyes. That was unusual. Most species showed fear when they first saw a Velthari warrior. "Commander Varix," the human said calmly, "I am Captain Kim of the colony ship New Soul. We are peaceful travelers seeking new homes. We have no weapons of war." Varix clicked his mandibles. "All the better. Surrender now, and you will not be harmed." "I must respectfully decline," Captain Kim replied. "These ships carry 20,000 civilians, including children. We cannot surrender them to an unknown fate." The response surprised Varix. Most species begged for mercy at this point. Some offered tribute or valuable resources. This human simply refused, as if he had any choice in the matter. "You do not understand your situation," Varric said. "We have 12 warships. You have civilian transports. Surrender or be destroyed." Captain Kim was quiet for a moment. Then he did something that shocked Varric completely. He smiled. "Commander," the human said, "I must ask you to withdraw from this system. You are threatening peaceful civilians." Varric stared at the screen. In 200 years of warfare, no enemy had ever demanded that he withdraw. The audacity was breathtaking. "You are either very brave or very stupid, human." "Perhaps both," Captain Kim replied, "but I will not surrender these people to slavery or death." Varric cut the transmission. He turned to his weapons officer. "Fire a warning shot across their bow. Maybe that will change their minds." The plasma cannon discharged. A bolt of blue energy streaked past the lead human ship, close enough to light up their hull plating. Varric opened the channel again. "That was a warning," he said. "The next shot will not miss." Captain Kim was still calm. "Lieutenant Park," he said to someone off-screen, "begin emergency procedures." "What emergency procedures?" Varric muttered. Then he saw something that made his blood run cold. The human ships were changing. Sections of their hulls were opening up. Hidden weapon ports emerged from what looked like cargo bays. Missile launchers extended from concealed compartments. In seconds, the harmless colony ships had transformed into armed vessels. "Impossible," Sub-Commander Nexus whispered. "Intelligence said they had no weapons." Varric watched in fascination as the human ships repositioned themselves. They moved with surprising coordination for civilian crews. "They hid weapons in colony ships," he said. Clever. But the humans were not done surprising him. As his fleet moved to attack positions, the human ships did something he had never seen before. They began connecting to each other with flexible docking tubes. Emergency umbilicals stretched between vessels as people moved from ship to ship. "What are they doing?" Nexus asked. Varric was beginning to understand, and he did not like what he saw. "They are evacuating crews to other ships," he said slowly. "They plan to use their own vessels as weapons." The largest human ship, the New Soul, suddenly accelerated directly toward his escort destroyer. Captain Kim's face appeared on the screen one last time. "All civilians have been evacuated," he said. "Engineer Lee has overloaded our fusion reactor. You have 30 seconds to move your ship." Varric realized with horror that the human captain was piloting the ship himself. The madman was going to ram a Velthari destroyer with a civilian transport. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," he shouted. The New Soul struck the destroyer at full speed. The fusion reactor exploded on impact. The blast wave crippled 2 more Velthari ships and damaged several others. In one insane move, the humans had destroyed or disabled 3 warships with a single colony transport. Varric stared at the expanding debris field. In the wreckage, he could see pieces of both ships mixed together. Human and Velthari metal fused by the explosion. "Status report," he ordered. "The Talon's pride is destroyed," his communications officer reported. "The Void Striker and Star Piercer are heavily damaged. We have lost 40% of our combat effectiveness." Varric looked at the remaining human ships. They were already moving away at maximum speed. They had bought time with their sacrifice and were using it to escape. "Shall we pursue, Commander?" Nexus asked. Varric considered it. He could catch the remaining ships, but they might try the same tactic again. How many more were willing to die to save the others? "All of them?" "No," he said finally. Let them go. He stared at the debris field for a long time after the human ships disappeared. In 200 years of warfare, he had never seen anything like it. Most species fought for territory, resources, or survival. These humans had fought for something else entirely. They had died not to win a battle, but to let others escape. As his damaged fleet limped home, Varix began studying the human data files again. There had to be an explanation for what he had witnessed. No species fought like that. No species was willing to sacrifice themselves so completely for strangers. But as he read deeper into the files, he realized something disturbing. The humans had not been surprised by his attack. They had been ready for it. Those weapons had not been hastily installed. They had been built into the ships from the beginning. The humans had been expecting a fight. For the first time in 200 years. Commander Varix felt something he had not experienced since his first battle as a young warrior. He felt respect for his enemy, and that worried him more than he cared to admit. 3 months had passed since the incident with the human colony ships. Commander Varix had spent every day studying human tactics and behavior. He read every report, watched every battle recording, analyzed every detail of their technology. He would not be caught off guard again. The Velthari High Command had not been pleased with his failure. Admiral Kexthara's message had been clear. "You will redeem yourself, Commander. The humans have established a mining colony on Kepler 442b. Destroy it. This time would be different." Varix brought his full battle group, 8 heavy cruisers, 12 destroyers, and 20 fighter squadrons. No civilian colony could stand against such force. He had also studied human psychology. They valued individual life above military objectives. Overwhelming firepower would force them to surrender rather than sacrifice themselves uselessly. Thea's mining world appeared on his tactical display as they dropped out of hyperspace. Kepler 442b was a rocky planet with rich mineral deposits. Human ships orbited the world like metal insects around a hive. Industrial platforms floated in space, connected to the surface by massive elevator cables. Human colony, Varix broadcast, on all frequencies. "This is Commander Varix of the Velthari Empire. You are illegally occupying this world. Surrender immediately or face destruction." The response came from the planet's surface. A man in military uniform appeared on the screen. His nameplate read, Colonel Hyun-Woo Choi. Unlike the colony ship. "Captain? This one looked like a soldier." "Commander Varix," Colonel Choi said. "I am the military commander of this colony. We claim this world under galactic settlement law. We will defend our claim." Varix studied the human's face. No fear, but also no desperate defiance like before. This one was calculating, thinking. "Colonel, you have seen what happened to your colony ships. You know you cannot win. Surrender and spare your people unnecessary death." "I have indeed studied the reports," Colonel Choi replied. "Captain Kim and his crew bought valuable time with their sacrifice. We honor their memory by continuing their mission." The transmission ended. Varix turned to his tactical officer. "Begin the assault. Target military installations first. Avoid civilian areas until they surrender." The Velthari fleet moved into attack formation. Plasma cannons lit up the darkness as they fired on human defense platforms. The first wave of attacks went exactly as Varix expected. Human shields failed under concentrated fire. Their weapons were no match for Velthari armor. Defense satellites exploded in brilliant flashes. But then something strange began to happen. The Second wave of human defenses performed better than the first. Not much better, but noticeably so. Their targeting was more accurate. Their shield harmonics had been adjusted to resist Velthari weapons more effectively. Tactical analysis, Varix ordered. The humans appear to be adapting their defenses in real time, his tactical officer reported. Each position we destroy passes information to the next position. Varix frowned. Most species had communication networks, but they were usually disrupted early in battle. Jam their communications. We are jamming them, Commander. They seem to have backup systems we cannot detect. The assault continued. Human positions fell one by one, but each position held out longer than the last. By the time Varix's forces reached the main colony, the human defenders were using tactics they had not shown at the beginning of the battle. A squad of human soldiers appeared on his fighter squadron's communication channel. The leader was a young woman with sergeant's stripes. Her nameplate read, So Young Kim. Velthari Fighter Squadron, she said calmly. You are flying into a trap. Check your sensor readings. Varix's pilots checked their instruments. The readings were normal, but as they flew over the human position, hidden surface-to-air missiles erupted from concealed launchers. 3 fighters exploded before the rest could escape. How did they know our flight path? The squadron leader asked. Varix was beginning to understand. They captured one of our fighters in the first wave, he said. They studied our tactical computers. But that was not the worst of it. As the battle progressed, Varix noticed that human soldiers were using captured Velthari weapons. Not just using them, but using them better than his own troops. A human sergeant with a plasma rifle was picking off Velthari soldiers with impossible accuracy. How are they doing this? Sub-Commander Nexus asked. They have never seen our weapons. Before today. They learn fast, Varix said grimly. Faster than any species I have encountered. The assault reached the main mining complex. The facility was vast, with massive ore processors and refinement plants. Thousands of human workers should have been helpless targets. Instead, Varix found himself facing the most disturbing sight of his military career. A man in civilian clothes stood in the center of the complex. His nameplate identified him as Dr. Jae-Sung Han, colony administrator. He was not a soldier, just a mining supervisor, but he was giving orders to military units with the confidence of a seasoned general. Commander Varix, Dr. Han said over the communication channel. Welcome to our mining operation. I hope you find it educational. Before Varix could reply, the entire mining complex transformed around his ground forces. Ore refineries became massive artillery pieces, firing chunks of processed metal at hypersonic speeds. Mining charges detonated in carefully calculated sequences, creating artificial earthquakes that toppled Velthari walkers. Conveyor belts became moving barriers that separated his forces and exposed them to crossfire. The humans had turned their entire industrial infrastructure into a weapon. This is impossible, Nexus whispered. Civilians cannot coordinate military operations like this. Varix watched as Dr. Han directed the defense with calm precision. The man was not trained as a soldier, but he understood the mining operation. Better than anyone. He knew exactly which systems to overload, which structures to collapse, which chemicals to mix for maximum explosive effect. He is not thinking like a soldier, Varix realized. He is thinking like an engineer. They all are. The battle raged for 6 hours. Varix's forces slowly pushed forward, but at enormous cost. For every human position they took, they lost equipment and soldiers. Worse, The humans were learning from every engagement. They started using Velthari tactical frequencies to send false orders. They began predicting attack patterns and setting traps. Most disturbing of all, they were working together in ways that defied military logic. Soldiers took orders from civilian scientists. Engineers commanded combat units. Children carried ammunition to adult fighters. The entire colony was fighting as a single organism. Finally, Varrix's forces broke through the last human defenses. The colony was his. But as he stood in the captured command center, he realized something terrible. The humans had let him win. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we are receiving evacuation reports from across the colony." Varrix looked at the tactical display. While his forces had been fighting for the main complex, civilian transports had been launching from hidden facilities across the planet. The humans had evacuated 90% of their population while he was distracted with the battle. Dr. Han appeared on the screen one last time. He was aboard an evacuation ship, safely away from the planet. "Commander," the doctor said with a slight smile, "thank you for the demonstration. We learned a great deal about Velthari tactics today. The information will be very useful in future encounters." The transmission ended. Varrix stared at the empty screen, understanding finally hitting him like a physical blow. The humans had not been trying to hold the colony. They had been using the entire battle as a training exercise. Every engagement had been a lesson in how to fight Velthari forces. Every captured weapon had been studied and copied. Every tactical maneuver had been recorded and analyzed. "Commander," Nexus said quietly, "what are your orders?" Varrix looked around the captured colony. It was his, but it was worthless. The humans had taken everything of value with them. The mining equipment was sabotaged. The computers were wiped clean. All that remained was empty buildings and dead machinery. "Begin salvage operations," he said finally. "See what intelligence we can gather from their equipment." But even as he gave the order, Varrix knew it was pointless. The humans had been too thorough. They had left him nothing but empty shells and broken dreams. As his fleet prepared to leave the conquered world, Varrix found himself thinking about the battle in new ways. He had won, but it felt like defeat. The humans had lost, but they had achieved their real objective. They had saved their people and learned how to fight his forces more effectively. For the first time in his career, Varrix realized he was not fighting a conventional war. The humans did not think about individual battles the way other species did. They were playing a longer game, one that stretched beyond single engagements to encompass entire campaigns, and they were very good at it. That night, as his ship jumped to hyperspace, Varrix began planning for the next encounter. Because he was certain there would be one. The humans would be back, and next time, they would be ready for everything he could throw at them. The thought kept him awake for the rest of the journey home. 6 months after the mining colony incident, Commander Varrix faced his greatest challenge yet. The Velthari High Command had lost patience with his failures against the humans. Admiral Kexathara's final message had been brutally clear. Break their defensive line at Sigma Draconis, or face court-martial for incompetence. Sigma Draconis was the key to human space. The heavily fortified star system guarded the approach to Earth and the other core human worlds. If Varrix could take it, the path to human civilization would be open. If he failed, his military career would be over. This time, he brought everything. 30 heavy cruisers, 50 destroyers, 100 fighter squadrons, and his most experienced crews. It was the largest Velthari fleet assembled in 50 years. No force in the galaxy could stand against such overwhelming power. The Sigma Draconis system appeared on his tactical display as they dropped out of hyperspace. What Varric saw made him pause. The system looked wrong. Asteroids moved in unnatural patterns. Space debris drifted in organized formations. Even the cosmic dust seemed to flow in calculated directions. Admiral Yoon Hai-yoon of the Human Defense Force came a transmission from the Central Command Station. Commander Varric, welcome to Sigma Draconis. We have been expecting you. The human admiral was a middle-aged woman with calm, intelligent eyes. She sat in what appeared to be a standard military command center, but Varric noticed something odd. Multiple screens around her showed views from different locations throughout the system. She was not just commanding one station, she was coordinating the entire system's defense. Admiral Yoon, Varric replied, I have come to accept your surrender. You are outnumbered 10-1. Resistance is futile. I appreciate the offer, Admiral Yoon said politely, but we must decline. This system is under human protection. Varric studied the defensive positions. The humans had built massive fortifications around the system's planets and major asteroids. Energy shields glowed around orbital platforms. Weapon arrays pointed outward toward his fleet. It looked formidable, but Varric had seen such defenses before. Overwhelming firepower could break any fixed position. Begin the assault, he ordered. All ships, attack formation. Concentrate fire on their primary command station. The Velthari. Fleet moved forward like a crushing wave. Thousands of plasma cannons fired at once, lighting up space with deadly energy. The human defenses returned fire, but they were vastly outnumbered. This should have been a simple matter of superior force, overwhelming inferior numbers. But as the battle began, Varric noticed something disturbing. The asteroids in the system were moving, not randomly, but with purpose. They were positioning themselves between his ships and the human fortifications, creating natural shields for the defenders. How are they moving asteroids? Sub-Commander, Nexus asked. They must have installed engines on them, Varric replied. But that should have been impossible. The energy requirements would be enormous. Then he saw something that made his blood run cold. The space debris was not just moving randomly, it was being used as weapons. Chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds, slammed into his ships like guided missiles. The humans had turned the entire asteroid field into a weapon system. Sir, his tactical officer called out. We are detecting massive energy readings from the system's gas giant. Varric looked at the sensor display. Jupiter-sized planet designated Sigma Draconis 4 was showing energy signatures that should not exist. As he watched, streams of charged particles erupted from the planet's atmosphere. The humans had somehow weaponized a gas giant's magnetic field. This is impossible, Nexus said. How can they control natural phenomena on this scale? Varric was beginning to understand. The humans had not just fortified Sigma Draconis, they had transformed the entire star system into a single massive weapon. Every planet, every asteroid, every piece of space debris had been turned into part of their defense network. But the real horror was yet to come. As his fleet pressed the attack, Varric suddenly detected new contacts on his sensors. Ships were appearing from impossible locations. Human fighters emerged from the far side of gas giants where the radiation should have killed any living crew. Destroyers materialized from deep within asteroid fields where no vessels should have been able to navigate. Cruisers dropped out of hyperspace from the system's outer edge where the cold should have frozen their crews solid. Where did they come from? Nexus demanded. They were hiding, Varric said slowly. But how? Our sensors should have detected them. The answer came from an unexpected source. A human marine appeared on his communication screen. Major Siak-Jin Park stood in what looked like the interior of a Velthari ship. "Commander Varix," Major Park said calmly. "Thank you for bringing us such fine vessels. My teams are taking control of your ship's systems now." Varix stared in shock. "How did you get aboard my ships?" "We boarded during the initial engagement," Major Park replied. "Your crews were focused on the battle. They did not notice a few extra maintenance workers in the corridors." Across the fleet, Varix's ships began reporting the same thing. Human boarding parties had infiltrated his vessels during the confusion of battle. They were not fighting to destroy the ships. They were taking them over from the inside. "This is Technician Hyejin Cho," came another transmission. A young human woman sat at what was clearly a Velthari engineering console. "I must thank you for these wonderful jump drives. They work much better than our own designs." Varix watched in horror as his own ships began turning against each other. The humans were not just using captured vessels. They were operating them more efficiently than their original crews. Human fighters moved with impossible precision. Human ships coordinated attacks with perfect timing. "How are they doing this?" he asked his tactical officer. "They appear to have studied our technology extensively," came the reply. "They know our systems better than we do." That was when Varix realized the terrible truth. The humans had been preparing for this battle for months. Every previous encounter had been a learning experience for them. They had studied Velthari technology, biology, psychology, and tactics. They had developed specific countermeasures for every standard Velthari strategy. Admiral Yoon appeared on his screen again. "Commander," she said with something that might have been sympathy, "did you really think we would let you attack our most important system without preparation?" "This is impossible," Varix said. "No species can coordinate operations on this scale." "You are thinking like a Velthari," Admiral Yoon replied. "You see warfare as a contest between individual ships and crews. We see it as a problem to be solved through cooperation and planning." The battle turned into a nightmare. Varix's fleet was not just being defeated. It was being systematically dismantled by an enemy that seemed to anticipate every move. Human forces appeared exactly where they were needed. Velthari weaknesses were exploited with surgical precision. Every advantage his fleet possessed was turned against them. "Sir," his communications officer called out in panic, "we are receiving surrender requests from across the fleet." Varix looked at his tactical display. Half his ships had been captured or destroyed. The other half were scattered and confused. The humans had achieved the impossible. They had defeated a force 10 times their size using preparation, coordination, and intimate knowledge of their enemy. "All ships," he broadcast on emergency frequencies. "Retreat to Rally Point 7. Emergency jump now." As his remaining ships prepared to flee, Admiral Yoon made one final transmission. "Commander Varix," she said, "we will be ready when you return, and we will continue learning from every encounter. Think carefully about whether you want to face us again." The screen went dark. Varix's ship jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage of his fleet and his reputation. During the long journey home, Varix sat in his cabin and tried to understand what had happened. The humans had not just won a battle. They had demonstrated a completely different approach to warfare. They did not see individual engagements as separate events. They saw every battle as part of a larger learning process. They were not just fighting the current war. They were preparing for every possible future war. Sub-Commander Nexus found him there hours later, staring out at the stars. "What are your orders, Commander?" she asked quietly. Varix continued staring into space. "Send a message to High Command," he said finally. "Tell them we are no longer fighting a conventional enemy. The humans do not just adapt to warfare, they evolve through it." "And our next move?" Varix closed his eyes. "There may not be a next move. I think we may have awakened something that we cannot control." As the ship continued its journey through hyperspace, Varix began to write his report. But he knew that no words could adequately describe what he had witnessed. The humans were not just another species to be conquered. They were something entirely new. Something that approached conflict with curiosity rather than anger, with planning rather than passion. Something that became more dangerous every time you fought them. And Varix had the terrible feeling that he had been helping them learn how to destroy his entire civilization, one battle at a time. 1 year had passed since Sigma Draconis, and Commander Varix no longer hunted humans. The humans hunted him. His once proud fleet was reduced to 12 ships, all damaged, all running low on supplies. The Velthari High Command had stripped him of his rank and declared him a rogue commander. They claimed his failures had brought shame to the Empire. But Varix knew the truth. They had made him a scapegoat because they were afraid to admit what he had discovered. The humans were winning the war. "Commander," his communications officer called out nervously, "we are receiving a transmission." Varix looked up from his tactical display. They were hiding in an asteroid field at the edge of Velthari space, trying to avoid human patrols. No one should have been able to find them here. "Source?" he asked. "Unknown, sir. The signal is coming from multiple directions at once." The main screen flickered to life. A human man in intelligence uniform appeared. His nameplate read, Captain Ji-Hoon Nam. He was young, but his eyes held the confidence of someone who knew he held all the advantages. "Commander Varix, Captain," Nam said with a slight smile. "We need to talk." "How did you find us?" Varix demanded. "We have been tracking you for months," the human replied. "Did you really think you could hide from us indefinitely?" Varix felt a chill run down his spine. "Impossible. We have changed course 17 times. We have used every stealth technique in the Velthari manual." "That is exactly the problem," Captain Nam said. "You are using Velthari techniques. We have studied all of them." The truth hit Varix like a physical blow. The humans had not just been learning Velthari military tactics. They had been studying Velthari behavior patterns, psychology, and decision-making processes. They knew how he thought. "What do you want?" Varix asked. "To offer you a choice," Captain Nam replied. "Continue running until we decide to end this game or surrender and live." "I will not surrender to primitives," Varix snarled. Captain Nam's expression did not change. "As you wish. We will be in touch." The transmission ended. Varix turned to his tactical officer. "Any sign of human ships in the area?" "No, sir. We are detecting normal background radiation only." But Varix was no longer fooled by normal sensor readings. The humans had demonstrated abilities that defied conventional understanding. They could hide entire fleets when they wanted to. "All ships," he ordered. "Emergency jump to coordinates 77 Alpha." His fleet disappeared into hyperspace, but Varix knew it was pointless. The humans would find them again. They always did. 3 days later, they emerged near a dead star system at the galaxy's edge. It was a place where no civilization had ever established colonies, where even pirates feared to venture. If anywhere was safe from human pursuit, this should be it. The communication screen activated immediately. This time, a different human appeared. Commander Young Mi Seo wore the uniform of a hunter-killer squadron. Behind her, Varix could see the bridge of a human warship that looked disturbingly familiar. "Commander," she said pleasantly. "Nice choice of hiding place, very isolated. Perfect for what we have planned." Varix stared at the screen in shock. "That is the bridge of the Velthari cruiser Star Render. We lost that ship at Sigma Draconis." "We prefer to think of it as captured rather than lost," Commander Seo replied. "We have made several improvements to the design. Would you like to see them?" Before Varix could reply, his tactical officer screamed a warning. "Multiple contacts. They are everywhere." The tactical display lit up with enemy signatures. Human ships emerged from behind asteroids, from the shadows of dead planets, from the depths of space itself. But these were not standard human vessels. They were modified Velthari ships, improved and enhanced beyond their original specifications. "Impossible," Sub-Commander Nexus whispered. "How many of our ships have they captured?" "Enough," Commander Seo answered, apparently having heard the question. "We have been busy since Sigma Draconis. Every engagement has provided us with new vessels to study and improve." Varix watched in horror as the human fleet maneuvered around his tiny force. The ships moved with perfect coordination, like a single organism with many limbs. But what terrified him most was that he recognized the tactical patterns they were using. They were his own strategies, perfected and turned against him. "You have been studying me," he said. "For months," Commander Seo confirmed. "We have recordings of every decision you have made, every order you have given, every tactical choice you have favored. We know how you think, Commander Varix." A new voice cut into the transmission. "We also know how you feel." The screen split to show another human. This one wore the uniform of a research analyst. Her nameplate read, Do-yeon Kim. She sat in what looked like a comfortable office, but the displays around her showed detailed psychological profiles and behavioral analyses. "Commander Varix," she said with disturbing gentleness, "we know about your doubts. We know about your growing respect for human capabilities. We know about your fear that your own people will never understand what they are truly facing." Varix felt his mandibles click involuntarily. The human was describing thoughts he had shared with no one, feelings he had barely admitted to himself. "We know you better than your own commanders do," Analyst Kim continued. "They see only your failures. We see your growth as a strategist and leader. You have learned more about warfare in the past year than most officers learn in a lifetime." "What are you saying?" Varix asked. "We are offering you a choice." Captain Nam's voice cut in as his image appeared on screen alongside the others. "Continue this pointless flight, or accept our invitation to learn something new." "What invitation?" Commander Seo answered. "Surrender your fleet, and we will show you how we have been doing all of this, how we track you, how we anticipate your moves, how we have turned your own strategic brilliance against you." Varix looked around his bridge. His crew was exhausted, demoralized, and terrified. His ships were falling apart. His reputation was destroyed. He had nothing left to lose except his life, and the humans could take that whenever they chose. "You want me to surrender so you can study me," he said. "We want you to surrender so you can study us," Analyst Kim replied. You are the only Velthari commander who truly understands what humanity is capable of. You are wasted as a fugitive." The transmission ended, leaving Varix alone with his thoughts. He stood on his bridge and looked at the tactical display. The human ships had not moved to attack. They were simply waiting, like patient predators who knew their prey had nowhere left to run. Sub-Commander Nexus approached him carefully. "What are your orders, Commander?" Varix was quiet for a long time. Then he walked to his command chair and sat down heavily. "Open a channel to the human fleet," he said finally. "Sir?" Nexus asked in surprise. "Do it." Commander CO appeared on the screen again, still smiling that confident human smile. "Commander Varix," she said. "Have you reached a decision?" Varix looked around his bridge one last time. At his loyal crew, his failing ships, his hopeless situation. Then he looked back at the human commander who had outmaneuvered him so completely. "I surrender my fleet to human forces," he said formally. I request safe passage for my crew." "Granted," Commander CO replied immediately. "Your people will be treated according to galactic conventions for prisoners of war. They will not be harmed." "And me?" "You," she said with something that might have been respect, "have an appointment with some very interesting people. They have been looking forward to meeting you for quite some time." As Velthari crews began evacuating their ships under human supervision, Varix found himself thinking about the past year. He had started as a hunter, confident in his superiority and certain of his victory. Now he was prey, captured by an enemy that had turned the very concept of warfare into something unrecognizable. But as he watched human troops boarding his ships with professional efficiency and surprising courtesy, Varix realized something unexpected. He was not afraid anymore. For the first time in months, he was curious. What had the humans learned? How had they achieved the impossible? What other secrets did they possess? As he was escorted to a human transport ship, Varix caught sight of analyst Kim standing near, the docking port. She gave him a slight nod as if acknowledging a fellow professional. "Welcome aboard, Commander," she said quietly. "We have much to discuss." The transport ship's door closed behind him, and Varix realized his war was over. But something else was beginning, something that might be even more dangerous than warfare. He was about to discover what humans were really capable of when they were not fighting for their survival. He was about to learn what they did when they had time to think. Commander Varix had expected a prison cell. Instead, he found himself in a comfortable room with large windows that looked out at green forests and blue skies. The sign on his door read, "Xenocultural Research Facility, Earth." He was not a prisoner. He was a guest. Dr. Sang-Ho Lee had been his primary contact for the past month. The human xenobiologist was a patient man who seemed genuinely interested in Velthari culture and psychology. Their daily conversations had become something Varix looked forward to, though he was still not entirely sure why. "Good morning, Commander," Dr. Lee said as he entered the common area. "How are you feeling today?" "Confused," Varix replied honestly. "Your people defeated my fleet, captured me, and brought me to your homeworld. But you treat me like a visiting scholar rather than an enemy prisoner." Dr. Lee sat down across from him and poured 2 cups of a hot beverage humans called coffee. "That is because you are a visiting scholar. We learned everything we needed to know about Velthari military capabilities from studying your actions. Now we want to learn about Velthari culture, philosophy, and way of thinking." "Why?" "Because war is wasteful," Dr. Lee said simply. "It destroys resources, kills people, and prevents cooperation. We prefer to understand our neighbors rather than fight them. Varric stared at the human. But you are very good at fighting. We are good at solving problems, Dr. Lee corrected. Sometimes those problems require violence. But violence is always our last choice, not our first. The door opened and Admiral Mi-young Kwan entered. She was the human officer who had coordinated the strategic operations that had ultimately led to Varric's capture. Despite being his captor, she had always treated him with professional respect. "Commander Varric," she said, sitting down at their table. "Dr. Lee, I hope I am not interrupting your discussion." "Not at all," Varric replied. "I was just trying to understand why humans approach warfare so differently from other species." Admiral Kwan considered this. "Tell me, Commander, when you fought us, what was your primary objective? To defeat your forces and claim your territory for the Velthari Empire. And our primary objective was to protect our people and preserve our civilization," the Admiral said. "Do you see the difference?" Varric thought about this. "You were fighting defensively. We were fighting to conquer." "Deeper than that," Admiral Kwan said. "You were fighting to win battles. We were fighting to solve a problem. The problem was that your people wanted to destroy ours, so we had to find a way to make that impossible." "By becoming too dangerous to attack," Varric said slowly. "Exactly. Every engagement with your forces taught us more about Velthari capabilities and weaknesses. We were not trying to defeat Commander Varric. We were trying to understand the Velthari Empire well enough to deter future attacks." The door opened again, and researcher Chan-Woo Park entered carrying a large data tablet. He was younger than the other humans, but Varric had learned that human military organizations promoted based on ability rather than age. "Admiral Dr. Lee," he said with a nod. "Commander Varric, I have something I think you will find interesting." He activated the tablet and projected a holographic display into the air above the table. It showed a map of the galaxy with various species marked in different colors. "This is our current assessment of galactic civilizations," researcher Park explained. "The red areas are aggressive expansionist species like the Velthari. The blue areas are defensive civilizations like ourselves. The green areas are neutral or isolated species." Varric studied the map. "What is the point of this analysis?" "We are developing countermeasures for all of them," researcher Park said, calmly. "All of them?" Varric asked in shock. "We have studied the military capabilities, cultural patterns, and likely behavior of every known species in the galaxy," the researcher explained. "We have theoretical strategies for dealing with each one, should they ever become hostile." Varric stared at the holographic display. "Even species you have never fought?" "Especially species we have never fought," Admiral Kwan said. "It is much easier to deter a war than to win one." Dr. Lee leaned forward. "Commander, what do you think makes humans different from other species?" Varric considered this carefully. It was a question he had been thinking about for months. "You learn faster than anyone else. You adapt to any situation. You turn every challenge into an opportunity for growth." "Those are all true," Dr. Lee said. "But they are symptoms, not causes. What drives all of that behavior?" "I do not understand," researcher Park spoke up. "Most species see the universe as something to be conquered, controlled, or survived. Humans see it as something to be understood. We are curious," Admiral Kwan added. "Painfully, dangerously curious. We want to know how everything works, why things happen the way they do, and how they might be improved." "When you attacked our colony ships," Dr. Lee continued, We did not just want to escape. We wanted to understand why you attacked, how your weapons worked, what your tactical preferences were, and how we could defend against future attacks. Varix felt a chill of understanding. You were studying us from the very first encounter. We were studying you before the first encounter, Researcher Park said. We had been monitoring Velthari expansion for years, analyzing your methods and preparing countermeasures. But why tell me all this? Varix asked. Why reveal your strategies to an enemy? The three humans exchanged glances. Dr. Lee answered first. Because you are not our enemy anymore. The Velthari Empire has recalled all forces from human space. They have declared the conflict too costly to continue. The war is over, and because we have an offer for you, Admiral Kwan added. She activated another holographic display. This one showed detailed technical specifications for starships, weapons, and defense systems. But these were not human or Velthari designs. They were something else entirely. What am I looking at? Varix asked. Theoretical countermeasures for the Zephyrian Collective, Researcher Park explained. They are a hive-minded species located about 50 light-years from human space. Our analysis suggests they will begin expanding in this direction within the next decade. We would like your help in refining these strategies, Dr. Lee said. Your military experience would be invaluable. Varix stared at the humans in disbelief. You want me to help you plan a war against a species I have never encountered? We want you to help us prevent a war, Admiral Kwan corrected. If we understand the Zephyrians well enough, we can deter them from attacking anyone, including your people. My people? The Zephyrian expansion path includes several Velthari colonies, Researcher Park said, highlighting the relevant systems on his map. An alliance between humans and Velthari would benefit both species. Varix looked around the table at the three humans. They were offering him something no enemy had ever offered before. Partnership. Not surrender, not submission, but cooperation as equals. You want to turn former enemies into allies, he said slowly. We want to turn the entire galaxy into allies, Dr. Lee said. Imagine what we could accomplish if every species worked together instead of fighting each other. Impossible, Varix said automatically. Different species have different needs, different goals, different solutions to the same basic problems, Admiral Kwan replied. Survival, prosperity, growth, security. We all want the same things. We just have different ideas about how to achieve them. Varix was quiet for a long time. He thought about his career, his failures, his growing understanding of human capabilities. He thought about the war that had cost so much and achieved so little. He thought about what the humans were offering him. A chance to help prevent future wars instead of fighting them. What would my role be? He asked finally. Cultural advisor and strategic consultant, Dr. Lee said. Help us understand how different species think and fight. Help us develop better diplomatic and defensive strategies. You would be doing the same work you did as a military commander, Researcher Park added, studying opponents and developing effective strategies. The only difference is that your goal would be peace instead of conquest. Admiral Kwan stood up and extended her hand in the human gesture of agreement. What do you say, Commander? Will you help us understand the galaxy? Varix looked at the offered hand. In Velthari culture, touching another species was considered intimate, almost sacred. But he had learned that humans used physical contact to show respect and trust. He reached out and grasped the Admiral's hand. I accept, he said. But I have one condition. Name it. I want to write a record of everything I have learned, a complete account of human military capabilities and strategic thinking. My people need to understand what they were really fighting, Dr. Lee smiled. What will you call it? Varric thought for a moment. I believed I knew battle, until I saw what humans were capable of. Perfect, Admiral Kwan said. We will help you write it. After all, the best way to prevent future wars is to make sure everyone understands exactly what humans can do when we are threatened. As the four of them began planning their work together, Varric realized that his real education was just beginning. For 200 years he had studied war. Now he would learn something far more complex and challenging. He would learn how to build peace. And for the first time since his capture, Commander Varric smiled.